Good evening. It's Thursday, February 13th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Troublesome. One of the newest cases of coronavirus is here in San Diego. That makes 2 patients being cared for at UC San Diego Medical Center in Hillcrest. The virus is also being called COVID-19, the official term for this particular strain. And today we learned a 3rd person is being observed as a possible case. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman was at today's briefing by health officials. He begins our live coverage in Hillcrest. Matt?
Yeah, Amitha, both those patients who tested positive for the coronavirus, they're being held here at UC San Diego Medical Center in Hillcrest. Now, both of these people, they were on the evacuation flights from Wuhan, China. That's an area where the coronavirus is very widespread. They were taken to MCAS Miramar. Obviously, then they developed some symptoms, so they were taken to local hospitals where they then later tested positive for the virus. Now, they're being held here in isolation, and earlier today, we got an update from officials on their condition.
One I would consider in very good condition. The other is in fair condition. Fair condition means fair condition, not severe and not good.
Officials at UC San Diego Health are doing everything they can to help the 2 people who tested positive for COVID-19.
If they require IV fluids, they'll get IV fluids. If they require Tylenol for fevers, they will get Tylenol. There is no specific FDA-approved treatment for this virus at this point.
The World Health Organization is working to find drugs that will fight the coronavirus. Right now, clinical trials are underway in China.
The quicker we find out whether those drugs are having an impact, and that could be in weeks in the way the trials are set up. We could have good information in weeks.
The WHO also says it could be a year until a vaccine is ready for the masses. Those who tested positive at UC San Diego Health could be in San Diego for a while.
They will be with us until the CDC feels comfortable sending them back.
Inside the hospital, the 2 patients are being kept in isolation, and officials are confident they will not infect anybody else.
We are very careful. I don't have a lot of concerns about secondary spread in that regard.
The CDC says there are likely to be more cases of the virus, especially with those who traveled to China, something UCSD Health is ready for.
If experience has taught us anything, that is that we should anticipate that there will be more individuals.
Yeah, now officials here at UC San Diego Health are taking every precaution. They say they're limiting the number of people who can go in that room to see those people who have tested positive for the coronavirus, also being called COVID-19 now. There's no timeline on when they might be released. Now, we have some other information for you. We know in addition to the 2 people who tested positive here, there's another person under observation here at the Hillcrest Hospital. There's also 2 children under observation at Rady Children's Hospital. Amitha, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Matt, for that report. One more note on the consequences of the coronavirus outbreak. Organizers of the Olympics say the Summer Games will go on as scheduled in Tokyo. Japan has more than 30 cases and has used a ship as a quarantine site. The Summer Olympics start in July. A rare reprimand from one of President Trump's closest cabinet members. Attorney General William Barr is complaining about the president's tweets on criminal cases handled by the Justice Department. In an interview with ABC News, Barr says recent tweets about the Roger Stone case, quote, make it impossible for me to do my job and to assure the courts and the prosecutors in the department that we're doing our work with integrity. Prosecutors had been seeking a sentence of up to 9 years in prison for crimes committed by Stone related to the Mueller investigation. Stone is a former campaign aide to Trump who lashed out this week. As a result, the Justice Department lowered its sentencing guideline and several prosecutors resigned from the case. More news from the White House. President Trump's national emergency declaration at the U.S. southern border will stay in effect for another year. The declaration unlocked billions of dollars in federal funds to build a wall on the southern border, bypassing Congress. National emergencies typically expire after 1 year, but the White House submitted a document to the Federal Register for continuation of the emergency. We're less than 3 weeks until the March primary. Today, teachers remembered Black history and rallied the local education community to use their vote. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has the story.
The Black History Month event recounted events from the Reconstruction era to modern day, emphasizing the need to remember the past so it was possible to move forward. Voting is considered a key tool for change. Gwendolyn Chamberlain is an adjunct professor at San Diego Continuing Education, part of the region's community college district. She says voting has an impact on nearly every aspect of life, particularly the brown and black communities in San Diego.
Let's talk about economics. Let's talk about food insecurity. Let's talk about housing insecurity, poverty levels. Voting is critical for just this community, but communities that are disenfranchised.
Chamberlain says the backdrop for the disenfranchised is different now than in the past, but it is just as important today. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
This week, KPBS is bringing you an investigation on a new political party in California and how some people may have been tricked into making a switch. It's called the Common Sense Party. Part 2 of our story airs tonight. We'll hear from a signature gatherer about their questionable recruiting later in the show. North County's Palomar College has been warned of serious budget trouble. Now, KPBS partner iNewsSource reports that its president is leaving with a big paycheck. Joy Lynn Blake has agreed to leave Palomar at the end of June. She will receive over $600,000 in salary and severance pay. Her departure comes after state officials warned the college could be broke within 2 years. Last year, iNewsSource reported Blake also faced criticism for spending $1 million for a presidential office suite in Palomar's new library. This week, the city finalized a settlement for more than $1 million with two men who were wrongly jailed for months. Aaron Harvey and Brandon Duncan were caught up in a controversial gang law. Today, they talked with KPBS Midday Edition co-host Jade Heinman about their experience and what comes next.
What did you experience while you were in jail?
Well, you know, when you're charged with shooting 9 different neighborhoods, and everybody knows what you're incarcerated for, you know, you're going to be under attack, right? So we experienced a lot of fighting, a lot of riots, but not just like the physical danger that we were in, but oftentimes there were individuals who were in our mod that had hepatitis and MRSA. And things like that. The toilets would overflow constantly, so you know you're walking around and yeah, you know, sometimes the food that would come through would be rotten, things like that. So just there's a lot of physical impact, but a lot of psychological impact as well.
Sounds horrendous. You know, how were your lives impacted by the experience? Brandon, I'll start with you on that.
Well, like for instance, before I was kidnapped, that's what I call it, my children were fine, doing good in school, you know, straight A students. When I left, my middle son, Jesse, he went from being a straight A student his entire life to having all Fs. I couldn't even talk to him. He wasn't used to me not being present in his life. So for the first time ever in his life, and then he's going into the 9th grade at this time too. So, you know, he's, you know, maturing and, you know, just going through teenager things. And he's just like, man, you're not here. Like, you're not never gonna be here for me again. You're gonna do life in jail. This is what the conversations that we're having. He doesn't believe I'm coming home. I'm like, you gotta trust in the Lord. Like, we're gonna be all right. But he didn't get it, you know what I'm saying? So that was one thing that, you know, the emotional distress that was put upon my children was like, still to this day, it's not all the way right.
So you guys this week settled for $1.5 million, nearly 1.5. You're going to split the settlement money. Do you have any plans for how you'll spend or invest that money? Brandon?
Invest. And, you know, just try to set my kids' future up. That's all. Yeah.
Aaron?
Yeah, I'm gonna sit down with my family, sit down, you know, with financial advisors and investment advisors, and come up with a plan. But most importantly, you know, I'm in school, about to be an attorney, right? So if anything, this money could be used to, you know, defend and fight more cases for people who've been wrongly convicted and incarcerated and things like that. So me and Brandon. You know, the money is great and we're appreciative of it, but our mission is kind of like just begun in the sense of continuing to advocate for our community and things like that. So the money just kind of like catapulted it just a few more years further into doing the community work that we've been doing for the last 5-6 years anyway.
That was part of a much longer discussion. You can hear more on the KPBS Midday Edition podcast. Thousands of Californians will have their records wiped clean when it comes to marijuana cases. LA is working with a company called Code for America to make it happen. The company is using its technology to sort through old files, some dating back to the 60s, to identify those who are eligible.
Automatic record clearance gives a fresh start to thousands of individuals who have been blocked from jobs, housing, and many other opportunities for far too long. Today's action marks the completion of Code for America's 5-county pilot in California and shows that automatic conviction relief is possible.
In my opinion, it was worth it, and we didn't want to wait any longer to provide relief for those people who were suffering from these felony convictions.
5 California counties are working with Code for America on this project, but San Diego County is not one of them. More than 85,000 old cases are expected to be cleared statewide. Among those in LA, nearly 80% involve people who are Latino or African American. It's already known as the most destructive and deadly wildfire in California history. And now there's concern the Camp Fire may have been even worse. Brandy Cummings talked to those trying to get a more accurate measure of the fire's victims.
These are images that many will never forget. Fire destroyed paradise. The official death toll, 85. But Chico attorney and Camp Fire survivor Joe Early says that number is much higher.
I would bet everything that there's a lot more.
He represents thousands of families impacted by the Camp Fire. 19 of his clients have filed wrongful death claims against PG&E, but their loved ones aren't included in the official death toll. That's because they say their deaths are indirectly related.
Most of them had some kind of complicated medical conditions, requiring medications, requiring some kind of care, oxygen or whatever, and they had never really been without it, and then they evacuate, in this circumstance. They don't have their medications, they're taken to places where conditions are very suboptimal, and it just sends them onto a downward spiral.
Early explained it's important that PG&E understands the consequences of their actions.
They need to know that they're killing more people than are being accounted for. That's, and again, for the future, don't do that again. Do your repairs. Make sure that safety is your number one priority, because it's really bad. The consequences are really bad. And I think this helps to illustrate that.
It's unlikely that the official death toll will rise. Early says there's no incentive to research and evaluate medical records to make that determination. So the fact is, the true impact of the Camp Fire may never be realized.
We'll absolutely never know how many people died indirectly, like these 20 families that we're representing. We'll never, ever know that.
That was Brandy Cummings reporting. It's not the news we want to hear, but water experts are warning the drought could return to California. According to the U.S. Drought Monitor, a significantly dry winter is to blame. Snowpack is currently at less than 60% of normal. The National Weather Service expects the next few weeks to remain dry. State water authorities say, fortunately, many reservoirs remain full from a wet 2019. Dry, sunny weather will last through the weekend. Daji Aswad has our forecast.
Increasing clouds tonight, but overall the pattern is on the tranquil side here across San Diego County. We'll be cooling down to 51 in San Diego. If you're out in Oceanside, your overnight low at 42. Better chance to get cloud cover as you head out to that coastline. And we'll still see some clouds further inland, but just not as widespread. 32 in Mount Laguna for tonight and 44 in Borrego Springs. We head through your Saturday knowing that it's going to be dry and seasonable through California, even back into the Four Corners. Once again, no need for the umbrella. It's tranquil as you kick off your Friday forecast. We will still see clouds as we go into tomorrow morning and throughout tomorrow in Oceanside with a high of 65, upper 60s in San Diego, and looking at plenty of sun with just a few clouds grazing through in Borrego Springs and Mount Laguna. Mount Laguna topping off at 51. As far as your weekend goes, we remain out of any storminess. There will be a system to our north that will be lowering snow levels across across portions of the Cascades, and that energy will continue to translate a little further to the east, eventually making its way into the plains. Dry slot of air across much of the southern plains there, and then as we move into the Gulf Coast from Louisiana to that Florida Panhandle, there will still be a zone of showers. Remaining extremely warm across Florida, so if you are doing any vacationing, well, you need to grab that bottle of water. Now, staying here at home, we're feeling fantastic. Temperatures right where they should be for this time of year. At the coast for Saturday, abundant sunshine, high of 67, remaining in the upper 60s through the upcoming week with that sunglass weather continuing. You'll also need the sunglasses for inland areas. We'll be topping off in the 70s for Friday and Saturday. Less cloud cover Saturday, and we'll continue to see that dry bubble of air into your Monday and Tuesday. By Tuesday, a high of 69 degrees. Remaining in the 50s here in the mountains, overnight lows in the 30s. Dry conditions, and also looking dry and tranquil here in the deserts. Your temperature for Friday at 74 degrees, then into the upper 70s for Saturday and Sunday. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Daji Aswad. Back to you.
Yesterday, we told you about how signature gatherers signed up San Diego voters for a new political party without their knowledge or consent. Today, KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregeser gets to the bottom of what happened.
Quick recap. We talked to 31 people who were registered as members of the Common Sense Party, and 30 of them had no idea what I was talking about. They'd never heard of the party and didn't remember signing up. All of those 30 people were signed up by paid signature gatherers. I knew the La Jolla group was hired by the Common Sense Party to sign up voters, so I went to their offices, which are in Kearney Mesa.
Hi. Is this the La Jolla group?
Yep.
I'm a reporter with KPBS.
The head of the firm, Bob Glazer, was there, and he agreed to talk to me. He says the registrar of voters had found one instance of a voter being signed up for the Common Sense Party without their knowledge. He says it was the signature gatherer's fault.
The signature gatherer was turned over to the registrar who contacted the signature gatherer, so between them, and we don't take any more cards from that person.
But he says they didn't report it to the Common Sense Party leaders. Still, he insisted his company's methods are above board.
I've been doing this 35 years. I'm an attorney. I'm fully aware of all of the importance of these cards, and we do not allow any type of fraud or any other type of problems. And when the registrar gave me the one problem, we immediately researched it.
Then I called Chris Easterling. He's a signature gatherer whose name is on the registration forms for several people who said they unknowingly joined the Common Sense Party.
People were signing people up without their knowledge. I mean, that's going to happen if people get paid to sign them up.
Right.
I mean, so there's going to be people that are not going to be ethical.
He says he works with the La Jolla group and says starting in December or January, the firm changed its policy. Now, he says Common Sense registrations have to be in the voter's own handwriting.
There's going to be people doing these that are, going to try to, game the system. But now they figured that out, and now they said it has to be in their own handwriting for it to count.
He claims he never filled out someone's form for them.
That's fascinating in a bad way.
Will Rodriguez Kennedy is the chairman of the San Diego County Democratic Party, and he had never heard of the Common Sense Party. But his mind immediately went to what party these Common Sense registrants had come from.
Were they a no party preference? Were they Democrats? Were they Democrats? They were Democrats? Of course they, what?
About half of the Common Sense voters who were already registered to vote used to be Democrats, while 10% were Republicans. It appears signature gatherers targeted specific groups. Nearly 40% of Common Sense Party voters in San Diego are under 25, and almost 2/3 live in urban areas south of Interstate 8. So then I went back to the organizers of the Common Sense Party to ask about what I'd found.
That's crazy.
Julie Myra Wright, a well-known former Republican who lives in San Diego, was shocked. She claims she didn't know people were duped into joining the party and pledged to look into their allegations.
I will personally make sure that we get to the bottom of this.
She needs to act quickly. Vote-by-mail ballots have already gone out, so common sense voters will have to contact the registrar to ask for a new ballot if they want to vote in the Democratic primary. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
After KPBS contacted Common Sense leaders, they said they plan to email everyone in their party to confirm their registration. To read the full story and watch Part 1, go to kpbs.org. Spring training for Major League Baseball is underway, but this season is starting with an apology, notably from the Houston Astros. Today, the owners and top players came forward to say they're sorry for the sign-stealing cheating scandal that has rocked the game.
I want to say again how sorry our team is for what happened. I want to also repeat that this will never happen again on my watch.
I am really sorry about the choices that were made by my team, by the organization, and by me. I have learned from this, and I hope to regain the trust of baseball fans.
As a result of the scandal, Houston's manager and general manager were fired, and the team was fined $5 million. They also lost draft picks. Teams like the Yankees are still questioning whether the team cheated in its 2018 season and not just 2017, when the Astros won the World Series. San Diego scientists have shown that certain prebiotics can help mice fight skin cancer. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani spoke to lead researchers about the effectiveness of these prebiotics, which cause bacteria to grow in the gut.
At the Sanford Burnham Previs Medical Discovery Institute in La Jolla, scientist Zev Ronai points to a mass of petri dishes filled with mice cancer cells. They're in a special refrigerator.
We provide them with the right temperature, the right concentration of oxygen, and the right concentration of CO2.
Ronai has been studying these cancer cells to find ways of boosting a mouse's immune response to tumors that cause skin cancer or melanoma. And the answer is bacteria.
So we have 3% of our body, close to it, is basically trillions of bacteria of different strains. And this is a mess because we're talking about different populations, dynamics that affect each other.
To manipulate this bacteria, Ronai looked at how two kinds of prebiotics worked in mice with skin cancer. Prebiotics, like proteins you might find in asparagus and onions, are essentially food that encourages certain bacteria to grow in the gut, which can help regulate the body.
We simply added them either as a food additive or to the drinking water of mice for a couple of weeks. And after 2 weeks, we asked whether these mice will be able to better fight cancer. And they were able to reduce the load of cancer by about 50%.
Ronai learned these prebiotics increase the animal's ability to fight skin cancer. He says it's still too early to see what this means for humans, but it shows more evidence that gut bacteria could be a useful tool in fighting cancer. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
More money is coming in to help the local fight against Alzheimer's and dementia. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mentos says advocates hope nearly $1 million will go toward better diagnosis.
So word lists are a very useful thing.
Dr. Gilbert Ho reviews the test he gives to patients he suspects may have Alzheimer's. It's part of his robust process at the Pacific Center for Neurological Disease in Poway because there is no one way to diagnose it.
It's not that straightforward sometimes.
There's no one single diagnostic test for the disease. Brain scans of patients with Alzheimer's can look different, and symptoms may vary. Most people associate Alzheimer's with memory loss, but Dr. Ho says that's not always the case.
They may have impairment in understanding what they see. They may have impairment in language.
The geriatric cognitive neurologist sees more than a dozen Alzheimer's patients a month, but he says not enough people are getting a diagnosis from specialists like him because not enough primary care doctors are taking that first step.
I think screening needs to be more consistent across the board, and it's something to work on. But yes, again, you know, they are overwhelmed. I would be overwhelmed if I did all the things that they do.
The Alzheimer's Association wants to boost screenings by primary care physicians. San Diego chapter's director of programs, Ana Gonzalez-Seda, says research shows even patients think cognitive assessments are important, but only 16% reported receiving them.
So there is a true gap there. So the physician might not feel competent enough because of lack of training or also time restrictions.
Gonzalez-Seda says the association has an app for physicians to easier screen patients, and they give presentations to doctors explaining how an early assessment can help patients get a diagnosis. They estimate only half of Alzheimer's patients ever get one.
The whole purpose is to educate the staff and to go through the signs and symptoms, also make it easy for them through that application on their phone that they can download and easily access.
She says the other gap is educating patients about the warning signs, especially in the Latino and Black communities where the risk of Alzheimer's is higher. But not enough people are raising the topic with doctors, partly because of the fear they may have it.
People are really afraid to ask those questions and really be honest with themselves.
As the Alzheimer's Association awaits details from the county on how it will spend the new state funds, Dr. Ho is working on improving detection. He also has a small research company where he hopes to collect blood samples from his Alzheimer's patients and design a possible test. He just got approval to begin the study today. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, I sit down with Senator Bernie Sanders, fresh from his victory in the New Hampshire primary. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.